I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, but now it's time to turn our attention to the Peach Bowl in Penn State. These are the keys to victory that will be necessary for the Ole Miss Rebels. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran of the national media with Yahoo Sports. I also did a little stint at WSMV in Nashville. Anyway, today on the show, it is game week, and we will tell you the three keys to the Ole Miss Rebels beating the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Peach Bowl. As I mentioned, I am Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're free and available on all podcast apps and YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen every single day. And a special hello to the everydayers that make the show what it is. So this is a big deal. This is going to be a really, really fun bowl game for the stylistic differences in the two teams. Two teams that have remarkably similar resumes, but they're also completely mirror images of each other. And that is very weird to think of because when you look at the resume, Penn State lost to Michigan and they lost to Ohio State. Ole Miss lost to Georgia and they lost to Alabama. And you look at the losses and everything lines up. But then you look at it and it's like Ole Miss is an offensive team. Penn State's a defensive team. And then that clash of best versus best in this Peach Bowl becomes a unique feature for Ole Miss fans to look at. Now, Penn State's had some opt-outs. Chop Robinson is opt-out. He's one of the better defensive linemen in the country and was going to be a problem on the edge. And we're going to talk about that particularly in just a second. I think a player or two else have opt-out as well. Potentially a defensive back, potentially an offensive lineman, but that has not been officially announced. It's just kind of assumed at this moment. Cedric Johnson has opted out for Ole Miss. He's getting ready for his NFL draft. That is really the only player that has opted out. Spencer Sanders is not going to play. He is not eligible for the game. This is a Walker Howard backup game, which honestly, Ole Miss fans are probably looking forward to. Anyway, nothing against Spencer Sanders. They just kind of want to see what the future looks like potentially with Walker Howard. But this game is going to be important because of the stylistic differences, the best versus best aspect of this football game. You're going to have Ole Miss's offense going against Penn State's defense, the best versus best. Everybody is going to make headlines of what this game could be, but I'll even simplify that a little bit more. I do not think that Penn State, even though they have some draft eligible players back there, their secondary is particularly good. They're okay. They get a lot of the benefit of the doubt because of the pass rush that this team gets and the explosive plays and the fact that we talked about yesterday of them being able to get the pass number of seconds that they have to cover down. So they get a little bit easier of a job. But whenever teams have had time to throw the football against Penn State this year, they've made that secondary pay. And fairly regularly, there's been some big plays in the pass game. I remember one against Indiana. And just right off the top of my head, and I don't watch any Penn State football. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But the main key to this football game will be Ole Miss's offensive line against Penn State's front seven. Now, this is a Manny Diaz-based defense. Now, we know he's at Duke. We know that Anthony Poindexter is probably going to be calling it, but it's going to be the same defense. The rhythm and the way that it's called might be a little bit different, but what you're going to do in 3rd and 7 is going to be on the same list now as it was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. So Ole Miss can game plan for what they're going to see. It might just be called a little bit differently. But one thing in a Manny Diaz defense is pressure. This is an explosive plays defense. This defense is about slowing you down and putting you in long yardage so they can get after you on 3rd down. A Manny Diaz defense, and I'm assuming the same will be happening for this Anthony Poindexter defense. The way to get at this defense is through misdirection, screens, things like that to get the fast flowing defense going one direction and hit them on the other side. Slow them down a little bit so your big chunk plays can be there. Do not try and get into the play calling trap that Ole Miss has gotten into a couple of times this year, to where everything is downfield from 15 to 25 yards, to where you drop down and on these RPOs, you're trying to do these third level RPOs, and the defensive line can realize that, hey, we got 2.5 seconds to get to right there. If we can do that, we're going to eat. Ole Miss could struggle if that is allowed to happen. So Ole Miss needs to vary the tempo with respect to the pressure that's going to come. That includes, I'm just going to call them 1-step, 3-step, and 5-step drop, even though it's shotgun. But it's getting the ball out of your hands at a varied tempo, so the defensive line doesn't know that they need to do that. Use your screen games, use your quick games, maybe some hitches, maybe some bubbles, maybe some pop passes. We'll talk to Bill Flowers after the game, I'm certain, but he will mention stuff like that to happen. You got a healthy Caden Prieskorn coming back. Jordan Watkins is going to be as healthy as he's been since before the Auburn game. And you have a lot of stuff going in your favor. You have opt-outs potentially on both cornerback positions for Penn State. We don't know what happened. Caleb King, I think that's his name, or Caden King. He was a highly projected defensive back prospect coming into the season. He has not quite had that season. And we talked to Zach Seiko, and he said he has a twin brother on the team and that maybe he's not opting out and he'll be back. So we don't know that for sure. There's a lot of assumptions that are being made right now in the terms of opt-outs. But this Penn State defense is good. I would favorably compare them to Texas A&M, especially in their explosivity up front, the way they can affect your whole game plan through that explosivity. And also, if you can get them blocked, you can make some hay down the field a little bit. So the key to this game to me is going to be blocking up that front seven, and the game between Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin and Anthony Poindexter and how pressure has gotten. I mean, you're going to see some engage 8 type stuff. You need to figure out a way to attack what is going on. And if you can do that, you will be all right against this Penn State defense. We're going to talk in the next segment about how this is a stay on schedule game for both teams and what that means. But it starts, honestly, right here. Ole Miss needs to be able to block their front. Can Ole Miss's offensive line get it done and win the battles that they need to win? If they do that, they'll probably be okay on Saturday. They'll probably be okay if they can get them blocked up. I think while Chop Robinson is opted out, Adisa Isaac, he's back. I think I got that name right. Their middle linebacker is back. So their triangle of depth is actually just a line of depth. But Chop Robinson is going to be replaced with a 5-star player. Now, he's not as good as Chop Robinson, because if he was, he would be playing before Chop Robinson opted out. But he's still a good football player and still somebody is probably going to need to be accounted for. I imagine that Penn State is going to come into this game and trying to get maximum pressure on what's going on, especially with the threat that you kind of just rush the run and then go to the pass. I think you'll see a little bit of the engage 8 type stuff with Penn State, because that's been successful, if we're going to be honest about it, over the course of the year. So Caden Prieskorn, big factor in this game. Jordan Watkins, big factor in this game. All the attention is going to be on Quinshawn and Trey Harris. Those two players, and Dayton Wade has a chance to really show out in this football game indeed. So should be a lot of fun to see, and I can't wait for it, honestly. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. We're just getting started. This may be the most on-schedule game of all of the bowl season. We'll tell you what that means next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home that winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 show. So we talked about Ole Miss battling Penn State's pressure, which is going to be the main key of this football game. Ole Miss's offensive line and passing game, honestly, and running game against Penn State's run pressures and pass pressures. That's going to think. Penn State is number one in the country in sacks and tackles for loss. You're going to have to deal with that. So what that means also tangentially, and this goes for Penn State too. If you're locked on Nittany Lions watching this show, this goes for Penn State as well in the second key of the game. This is probably the most stay on schedule game in all of bowl season. You do not want to be in 2nd and 8+. You do not want to be in 3rd and 8+ against either one of these teams going in. And it's for different reasons. Penn State is a talented, explosive defense that is pretty good at getting off the field. Ole Miss needs first downs for their tempo to get cranked up. The Big Ten does not run tempo. Tempo can be a massive advantage in this football game for Ole Miss. They just don't do it for whatever reason. It's very slow tempo, 62 plays a game, that whole deal. Maryland tries to do it, but they don't do it particularly well. And Ole Miss needs a first down to get into their tempo offense, which means Ole Miss needs to stay out of long yardage situations, which when things are not going well, Ole Miss tends to find themselves in. Ole Miss needs to be in 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2. They need to do that as much as possible to get these sticks moving, especially on the first play of the drive. That means blocking for Quinshawn. That means throwing the ball quickly and get them out, getting a couple of yards, stealing them here and there, and kind of picking and choosing where to take your shot downfield. If you do that, as we've seen, this offense becomes nearly unstoppable. Ole Miss played against Texas A&M. Texas A&M had the top defense in the Southeastern Conference. They were very explosive, honestly. They compare very favorably to what Ole Miss is going to see in the Peach Bowl. They just do. And that's not an insult to Penn State. That's honestly a compliment to Texas A&M. But that's going to be similar. Ole Miss varied their passing times. 1-step, 3-step, 5-step drops. They attacked in different ways. They ran the ball well. They got first downs. Ole Miss put up over 500 yards of total offense, and they beat Texas A&M. That is the analogous game. That is the game that people are going to look at as honestly something they should keep an eye on. It is just the way it is. This is a stay on schedule game. If you flip it over when Penn State's on offense, Ole Miss, we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but Ole Miss needs to earn the right to rush the passer by stopping the run. Penn State wants this game to go 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 1st and 10, and run the ball with Nicholas Singleton and those guys down the field. Drew Aller not taking as many risks to throw the ball down the field as he needs to. Ole Miss needs to make it to where Drew Aller has to win the football game. Drew Aller in high-stakes games against top 10 teams he's played this year has not played particularly well. And his confidence, as we've talked to Zach Seko, has a chance to get affected. Ole Miss, by its own right, has an explosive defense where they do a decent job in tackles for loss and quarterback sacks. You want Jared Ivey, you want Isaac Ukwu, you want those guys to be able to hunt a little bit. And to do that, you're going to need to stop the run. But Penn State's goal will be to stay on schedule and use the run to stay on schedule. Ole Miss needs to just move the matriculate the ball down the field a little bit before they go into their chunk plays, because their chunk plays, while Ole Miss can score in a minute and they can score in a hurry, and you can be like, what happened? It could also be a situation where Ole Miss just ran 3 plays in 15 seconds and they're punting the football back. So that's the type of situation. Penn State leads the Big Ten in time of possession. They want to run the football. They play slow. This is going to be a battle of tempos. If Ole Miss can get first downs and get into their speed up tempo to go with Penn State's slowdown to where they can't do it, Ole Miss should be in good shape. I think the time of possession goal for Ole Miss, just like it was at the end of the season, is about 27 minutes. That's kind of the magic number. But this is a stay on schedule game. Get first downs. Keep the type football game for Ole Miss. This is a game that has a chance to be a 27-24, 24-21 type football game. A really good football game. I'm really fired up that Ole Miss got this matchup, because this is on paper the same team, and also they're mirror images of each other. It's best on best. It's I don't want to say mid on mid, but you know what I'm saying. This is a game that is completely even. That's going to be decided by turnovers. It's going to be decided by old-fashioned 1980s football stuff is going to decide this football game. Turnovers and penalties, playing a clean game, those are going to be very important. I think Ole Miss is going to be very locked in on this football game because it is the Peach Bowl. Because of what it means for 2024. Both of these teams are going to be in the mix come 2024. Ole Miss has a chance to really be in the mix next year. But momentum-wise, Ole Miss needs to win this game. I talked yesterday about how a win in this game could see Ole Miss ranked 3rd or 4th in the preseason polls. And everybody's going to say, well, the preseason polls don't mean anything. Well, that's not true. They don't mean anything as far as direct correlation, but they do mean something in establishing these storylines for the rest of the football season, for the rest of the offseason, to be in the news. Because like this year, the narrative got set in week 1 and week 2 that the SEC was down. And that's all we heard about all season long. The SEC is down. The SEC is down. For the longest time, Georgia was the only team in the top 4. The next closest one was ranked 8th. But now if you look at the playoff rankings, the SEC has like 7 of the top 13 if you include Oklahoma and Texas. Down was a myth, but it was also the narrative that carried most of the football season. So in that way, polls matter. And those polls are going to be what influences the college football poll. They can be like robots and computers in a room, but sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes you hear something over and over again, you believe it to be true. That's the way that works. Anyway, should be a lot of fun. Still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is a game where Ole Miss is going to have to earn the right to rush the passer. What do we mean by that? We will tell you next. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day, and shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. Be part of history. Now, we talked a little bit in the last segment that what Penn State is going to try to do offensively. Offensively, they are a very slow offense. They're very Big Ten-like. They're prodding. They're going to beat you running very old-fashioned football plays, and they're going to play the game real similar to the way it was played 15, 20 years ago. And that is not an insult to Penn State. So before Penn State's watch this video, do not take that as an insult, because that works in modern college football. Whenever everybody agrees to it, which the Big Ten has agreed to it essentially, they get to play that way, and defense rules the roost and all of that. I do not think defenses in the Big Ten are that much better than everybody else. I do not think offenses in the SEC is that much better than anybody else. We're talking slim margins in this football game. But Penn State's going to come in and try and do what they do. Now, Penn State does not have the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator that they started the season with. That is absolutely nuts. They fired the offensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator is going to Duke and Manny Diaz. But Penn State is going to line up and try and play big boy football. They just are. Ole Miss at times can be undersized on the defensive line. The linebackers can be a little bit undersized as well. Penn State is going to do what they need to do to get Ole Miss in short yardage situations, similar to what Texas A&M did. I'm going back to that game all the time. What Texas A&M did in the second half is what Penn State is going to try and do to Ole Miss. It's going to be a game where Xavion Harris and J.J. Pegues needs to do some work. It's going to be a game that Jared Ivey needs to do some work. Isaac Ukwu, those guys need to do work. You need to get Penn State into pass situations so you can get the Kari Colemans and the Suntaran Perkins and those guys on the field to make those explosive plays happen. But if it goes 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 1st and 10, 4 yards a carry, that's going to be problematic for Ole Miss's defense. Just know that. Time of possession wise and everything else, you could have a game to where Penn State has the ball for 39 minutes and Ole Miss has it for 21, if that happens. So Ole Miss has to earn the right to be explosive defensively, to earn the right to rush the passer for Isaac Ukwu and those guys to get after Drew Aller. You need to stop the run and put them in a long yardage situation. Now, it won't be every first down sequence. Penn State's too good for it to be first down sequences every single time. So it might be a situation to where you get Penn State into 2nd and 8. You need to make sure the next play you get them into 3rd and 6 to where it's kind of a medium yardage situation to where you can pin your ears back a little bit. 3rd medium is difficult, but it's going to be hard to get this team into 3rd and long. They do not give up many tackles for loss, mainly because of the way they run the football. So Ole Miss's defense is going to have to earn the right in this football game. They've got to earn the right to get after Drew Aller. And if you don't do that, it's going to be not necessarily a long day because I think Ole Miss's offense is going to be able to hunt a little bit. But defensively, that's how the second half of Texas A&M happens. That's how the Georgia game happens. You need to be able to stop the run. Kari Coleman, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, those guys at linebacker, they need to do a good job. Ole Miss needs to be sure tackling. The extra yards in a run play, if a play is stopped at 2 yards, it doesn't need to gain 4. You need to do what you can to get the ball carry on the ground because you need to save yardage because being on schedule is going to be the utmost important for Penn State in this game. I'm going to tell you right now, Penn State in the first drive, they want to we're going to say defer, but because they always do whenever teams play Ole Miss. But when Penn State gets the ball on offense the first time, they want a 7-minute drive that results in a touchdown. That is Penn State's goal. Ole Miss just wants a touchdown. Penn State wants it with the time factor as well. And to do that, they need to be able to run the ball effectively between the tackles. And Penn State's running backs are good. They're legitimately good. So it's going to be work for the defense to do that. And knowing that could open up some explosives potentially for Penn State in the pass game through play action and shots that they take downfield. It's going to be a big, important deal for Ole Miss's defense in this game to handle the run game. If Ole Miss can handle the run game, Penn State doesn't have a chance in this ball game. Simple as that. If you want the game to be over and just done with, handle Penn State's run game. Not many people have been able to do that, though. So Ole Miss needs to contain Penn State's run game, keep them off schedule as much as they can with a potential new offensive tackle playing in the game. Maybe with the noise that's going to happen, you can put them off schedule a little bit through penalties, through holds. It's a Pac-10 refereeing crew in this game. So some of the problems that Ole Miss has seen over the course of the season, that's not going to happen. The Penn State people don't know they don't know about all of that stuff potentially. I don't know. But with the Pac-10 crew, you don't know how they're going to call the game. They might call it tight to where every play is a holding penalty. They might let everything go. I do not know how that will get work. But staying on schedule, earning the right to rush the passer, and keeping Penn State off schedule is going to be a key, a major, major key in this football game. Should be a lot of fun. Anyway, I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas yesterday. And as we move on this week, we'll do like what to watch for tomorrow. We'll do our crossover on Thursday and why Ole Miss wins on Friday. And then on Friday also, I'll be at the Under Armour Media Day in Orlando to basically talk to Ole Miss commitments potentially. And on Sunday, I'll be back at the Under Armour practices, and we'll see exactly how that goes. Should be a lot of fun indeed. And I hope everybody, like I said, had a great day. And now we get into game week. Now we get to have fun. And I do want to thank everybody for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every single day. Every dayers, we have all the Peach Bowl and all the recruiting talk you will ever need. So check in all week. For your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today and that stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.